Commander, stand by. I'm having Eva conference Dr. Boudreau into this debriefing. Eva?
Incoming transmission from Daedalus Research Complex. Please stand by.
What are you doing about the assassination of Tratos, General? How could GDI let this happen? He was an integral...
Our forces have been spread thin, Doctor. Not to mention, we're still unable to raise the Philadelphia.
I was there. I saw the Kodiak go down. Unless you forget, the point of this entire operation was to get the Tacitus to Tratos.
Let's save the recriminations. What do you have for us?
The Daedalus team and I are still convinced that Tacitus is our best approach. The assassination of Tratos has put us months, if not years, off schedule. At the present rate of Tiberium organic synthesis, within a year, maybe less, our atmosphere will be 100% toxic to humans.
Eva, what alternatives to deciphering this Tacitus are at our disposal?
Actually, Paul, I have an idea. You're not gonna like it. Cabal. Kane's AI.
You're serious? Eva, analysis.
Analysis of data from Kane's temple indicates that Kane's master computer, Cabal, assisted Tratos in the translation of the Tacitus.
Current intel on Cabal's status and location?
Interception of recent coded signals indicates that Cabal is back online. If Cabal could be captured intact, it could translate the Tacitus for GDI. I have pinpointed the location of Cabal's data core.
Commander, as distasteful as the idea sounds, it appears that Cabal is our best shot at stopping Tiberium contamination. Think of this as a prisoner snatch. I want a hard target recovery of Cabal. Use whatever means you deem necessary, but get that machine intact.
Oh, welcome back, Commander. It's been a while, and, well, we're gonna see a rather tough mission ahead of us.
Allow for unit reinforcement. Their destruction would be beneficial in completing this mission.
Infantry reporting.
New
Infantry
construction
reporting.
options.
Unit ready. Infantry reporting.
So first things first, the base creation's basically everything we've already seen,
Options.
and we're getting into a point where we're back to, I don't want to say actual missions, but there's less setup in these. The first missions before this have all been to set up a theme and plot exposition, whereas now it's fairly encroached in the actual goings-on of Tiberian Sun as one would have played it regularly. Now, there's mentions of, one, locating fence technicians, but also, the second and more important point, being the enemy bridges that allow for reinforcement. The game, for whatever reason, uses may allow for reinforcement. There's no hypothetical here. They do. And there's also multiple bridges. Technically, they're already revealed to you, but you won't see them until you get a radar. Actually, you could scroll to them, but unless you know where they are, you're kind of uselessly scrolling around for a little bit.
Sir? Sir?
This mission, admittedly on hard, does end up to be quite a scrappy run thing. You really have to be careful with how many units you send out versus how many you keep at home, and just exactly what and how you're defending.
Construction complete.
Or more specifically, what width you're defending.
Sir?
This will become more important later on, and we'll see exactly why. For now, though, we should get used to this
Infantry reporting.
duo that approached our base. One obviously was triggered just because I sent Wolverines that far out, but you should always expect just a pair of cyborgs to just show up.
I'm on it.
It doesn't always seem like a lot, but there's something about the cyborg and just how if the enemy just gets freebies and keeps throwing them out, it adds up. It also doesn't help that you're going to want to keep some Titans around, because, I mean, disc throwers are nice and all, but as soon as a cyborg kills one and they're anywhere near friendlies, you can almost kiss your group goodbye. Now, there is a sort of recommendation that one has to make. GDI is clearly given the tools to fight the cyborgs. Not only do we have the EMP Pulse cannon, we have Titans that are regularly good against cyborgs. Disc throwers do well against them, all things considered, up to a certain point, obviously. Jump jet infantry are completely immune to cyborgs, provided they're in the air. There's just a number of either effective counters or what else? How do I want to say this? Just equal combatants. And speaking of jump jet infantry and flying units, you'll want to abuse them in this mission.
Base under attack. Construction complete.
This is probably one of those missions that actually makes me rethink if I want to play on the hardest difficulty for LPs. And I probably won't for future games. I don't know. I played a lot of Tiberian Sun, so I feel like I have a handle on the mechanics and combat a lot more than I would in whatever subsequent release that we'll see. If we'll see any, of course. And somehow I found a cracker in my strategy guide here. That is strange. So like I said, cyborgs, you should get used to seeing them. It's a little problematic because if you don't send any of your harvesters out to clear out the Tiberium, subsequent cyborgs just live longer. And I don't want to say are more powerful, but I mean, kind of. With the radar intact, we can see that, again, there are 2 spots on the map, and reinforcements will constantly pour out. Generally speaking, you can also expect to have 2 cyborgs join the attack. The attack consisting of 1 attack buggy, let me pull up this list here. It should be 2 tick tanks, 2 attack cycles, and 1 attack buggy. Supplemented by 2 cyborgs, of course. And if you were trying to be cute and maybe send some harvesters up, or maybe try to clear the way for your Titans to go up and just shoot the bridge and destroy it from underneath, yeah, no dice. There's just a lot to occupy the player. Whether it's subterranean APCs that attack you from behind, devil's tongues that wreak havoc on that same front. There's a cyborg commando in the Tiberium field up north, so that's also just gonna mess with you and your ability to do anything, really. Now, once that's all done, you've eliminated the cyborg commando, you've taken out whatever reinforcements, you've managed to clear a path, you've used your Titans, or I guess disc throwers. If you're from below, it'd have to be Titans. But, you know, you do all this, you finally manage to destroy the bridge, you're given at least some room to breathe. It's not a lot, but better than nothing. It should be noted that unless you go a very long and terrible path, you absolutely need to get an amphibious APC loaded up with some disc throwers and basically force attack the bridge. Oh, and don't do like I did. I wasn't paying attention to the map for some time, and I lost all of my jump jet infantry, which were probably at least somewhat experienced at that point. Oh, and yeah, this mission will definitely make you paranoid about getting concrete just about everywhere. I Thankfully, the Devil's Tongues are mostly focused on power plants for whatever reason, but, you know, as soon as they turn towards the infantry, you're kind of screwed. Oh, and that is kind of a little bit of a trick, if you want to call it, where you wait for subterranean APCs or Devil's Tongues to sort of look like they're going up, or at least you kind of have to guess where they're going. And then you place concrete and it shifts them around a little bit.
Sir, unit reporting. Sir, unit ready. Waiting order, unit.
Another thing that's pretty useful and kind of predetermined by the AI, it has to choose somewhere, and it doesn't really take into account defenses and other such weapons. So leave like 1 or 2 patches, maybe like 3 or 4, just so that in case the AI sends multiple units, but you just keep a patch open, surround it with turrets, and you should be fine. Now, granted, saying that, you kind of also have to try and determine where exactly they're going to send their APCs. And it seems like the Devil's Tongues and APCs go in 2 separate areas. But I'm not sure if that's something that's just hard programmed in, or just happens to be the case.
Sir, unit ready. Unit reporting. Yes, sir. Unit reporting.
All in all, so far, it's been it's a pretty hard challenge to try and beat this level. But the biggest thing you obviously want to watch out for, at the start, make sure you can get some sort of defense up. You want to be able to take out or worry about vehicles, cyborgs to a certain degree, and do whatever you can to survive until you can destroy the bridges. Because as soon as those bridges are down, then you've eased so much pressure off of yourself that you shouldn't really have any trouble with stabilizing the situation. Granted, you still have to worry about Devil's Tongues and APCs at this point, but it could be worse. It could be all that and the reinforcements from the bridges.
Loud and clear. Moving out. Unit reporting. Unit reporting. Awaiting orders. Unit ready. Sir?
Unit ready.
I don't believe there's a way to repair those bridges either, so you don't have to worry about the AI trying to do something silly. You trying to game the system, and, well, I don't think the trigger would activate if, would reactivate in any case.
Unit ready. Awaiting order. Loud and clear. Loud and clear. Awaiting order. Moving out. Loud and clear.
Building captured.
Sir?
Building captured.
So once you go to this tall, thin, white building, you manage to spawn in some technicians. You don't want to lose them, because if you do, I'm pretty sure it's a game over. And yeah, it's just
Yes, sir.
kind of an annoying thing to force upon the player, because now obviously you have to take them. You have to clear the path that you need to go to, but you need to basically drag them from one corner of the map to another.
Harvester under attack. Construction complete.
It's just a little bit more busy work that I would have expected.
Pulse cannon ready.
Sir. Yes, sir. Sir. Unit reporting. Sir.
Primary building set. Building.
I think the best way I can describe, or attempt to describe this level, is just taking a nice little quote, one sentence quote from the strategy guide I have, which basically just states, build another 20 Titans at your northwest base, then move them slowly towards the second array, destroying obelisks, lasers, and nod vehicles as you encounter them. I don't think I've seen too often where the guide specifically states a quite large number of Titans.
Unit ready. Infantry reporting. I'm taking heavy fire.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Oh, yeah. This brings up another point, which is why I really dislike the EM pulse cannon,
You got it.
and why I dislike having just
Unit reporting.
infantry in general. Destroyers can do well against cyborgs, but only if one is in numbers and the other isn't, as we've seen. And I really dislike the EM pulse cannon because, well, we see just how terrible it is. It only stuns the units, or the APC, and not the actual units inside the APC, which seems like a little bit of an oversight. So yeah, one Destroyer can't survive against one Cyborg, regardless of experience level. So I don't want to call it abusing the system or anything, but if you can take advantage of the fact that Nog doesn't always have air defenses in certain areas, yeah, just send in some jump jet infantry. It might take a while, but, what's your alternative? And I'm sure someone will say, well, I'll get orcas. And, I mean, I could. I think the worst part, too, is that none of this would be that bad if you were given a tech center. And it's not that I need a tech center because I'd like to have, disruptors or anything like that. It's more specifically because you don't have access to the RPG launcher, which is a quite vital piece of the GDI defenses. So if you don't have access to the RPG launcher, then you don't really have anything that's anywhere near as effective versus, say, cyborgs, or tick tanks, or attack buggies. Oh yeah, and that's... if you're gonna try and take tick tanks out of their defensive spot, best way to do it is Destroyers.
Sir?
For some reason, it's bait that they will never let go. I guess technically you could probably also do something like Titans, but it's not really worth it.
Awaiting orders.
Unit ready.
Engineering affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Unit ready. Yes, sir. Unit ready. Sir, unit ready. Waiting order. Loud and clear.
Unit ready.
Sir, loud and clear. Sir.
Select target.
Unit reporting.
Also, for some reason, there's... I know I've already shown it off in the Nog campaign when we were looking at the Mammoth Mark II. It still weirds me out that there is absolutely no marker or sign or anything that a defensive structure is taken out from an EMP pulse, or EM pulse.
Unit reporting. Sir, on my way, sir.
It just feels like,
Ready.
I mean, if it's being affected by it, shouldn't there be something to signify that?
Waiting orders.
But maybe I'm just thinking too much about it. I don't know.
Unit ready. Waiting orders. Waiting orders. Unit ready. Sir. Unit ready.
Construction complete. Cannot deploy.
Unit reporting.
Subterranean
Waiting orders.
unit lost.
Unit reporting. Yes, sir. Waiting orders.
Yeah, if tick tanks weren't bad enough, you supplement them with the occasional obelisk, artillery, and banshees, and, well, it's just such a costly affair.
Unit
Unit
lost.
ready, sir. Unit reporting, no problem.
Unit lost.
Sir,
Unit
waiting orders.
lost.
Unit ready. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Unit lost.
Waiting orders. Unit ready. Awaiting orders. Waiting order. Good as done. Unit ready. No problem. Waiting orders.
Another issue too is by the time you get to near the end level or end state of the level,
Building.
there's just so little Tiberium left to like easily exploit.
Infantry reporting.
Tiberium trips start taking longer, and yeah, it's just it becomes more and more of a pain.
Unit lost.
Loud and clear.
EM pulse cannon ready.
And if all the issues with regards to the initial defense, having defenses for all three types of attacks, which, don't get me wrong, I'm praising because, or I will praise because it gives variety, and if anything, it really kind of shows off the strengths of Nog. But to the detriment of this level, despite all it shows and how cool certain things are, it does have the fact that you have to kill everything on the map, which is like the only reason I'm speeding all of this up for so much. You get to a certain point where there's only so much new that you can show off. First off, we've done the array thing like twice now. If not, well, maybe just once, but still, we've done it before. We have to do it a second time. You have to do it by clearing out units. You're only really going to do that by sending in engineers. Certain locations are already covered by artillery, so it makes it tougher to bring civilians in. And then you have to run across and do a whole bunch of stuff. So, and there's so many units here. Even with all my Titans, I still run out of time. And granted, EM pulses aren't notoriously long or anything in their shutdown duration, but I mean, it still took me a while. I still had to do this twice.
Waiting orders.
Okay, so you don't have to kill everything, but you still have to get an engineer. So, kill everything.